Now, the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is urging farmers to vaccinate their animals against Rift Valley fever, or RVF. Now, mosquitoes carrying the viral disease from infected animals to healthy ones actually cause them to abort fetuses and eventually die. The virus mainly affects cattle, sheep, goats and buffalo. Rift Valley fever can also be spread to people who come into contact with bodily fluids of infected animals. Dr. Mpho Maja is the Director of Animal Health at the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and she joins us now to talk more about this. Dr. Maja, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Sakina. Good morning to the viewers.
So, in addition to what I've just said in terms of just a preamble to this constitution, I almost said, to this interview, can we just talk a little bit more about what Rift Valley fever actually is?
Okay, your summary was actually spot on. I'll elaborate further. Rift Valley fever is a disease caused by a virus. So it's a viral disease. It affects ruminants, both wild ruminants, you mentioned buffalo, as well as livestock. The main concern is with sheep, goats, and cattle. And that is why the department has gone out on this call for farmers to vaccinate. It is transmitted by mosquitoes. And that is why the call is made now, after the heavy rains, which we are grateful for as farmers. But unfortunately, the heavy rains come with vectors as well. And for us to be prepared, we need to vaccinate now before the vector activity is high and the virus overwhelms the system. It's unfortunately also a zoonosis. It affects people. So people can get infected from handling fetuses. Farmers, when they try and assist the lambs, or slaughterhouse workers, abattoir workers, if they slaughter infected animals, they could also get infected that way. Also, drinking unpasteurized milk from infected cows could also result in people being infected. It's a notifiable disease in terms of the Animal Diseases Act, so all farmers and veterinarians and paraveterinarians suspecting a incident of Rift Valley fever need to report that to the nearest state veterinary office so that the necessary measures can be taken. If I could also indicate the other clinical signs in livestock, it's generally fever, and normally when animals are feverish or are not feeling well, the first sign that you see is that they stop eating, they lose their appetite. So that's the first indication. There's also abortion storms, and in young animals or very old animals with where the immunity has been compromised, the disease also results in severe mortalities, deaths.
Dr. Maja, I know you said this disease is carried by mosquitoes. Is that the reason, or is there any other specific reason why farmers are being urged to vaccinate now?
That's the main reason why we urge farmers to vaccinate now. We have had good rains, and we know that there's going to be increased activity of the mosquitoes. Then, if we go by history, the last case that we had was in April of 2018. And that was again after the good rains that we had received. So the incident rates or the incident periods are around April and before winter sets in. So it is advisable that we start vaccinating now.
So speaking of, history, have there been any recent Rift Valley fever flare-ups that we can speak of?
Thankfully not. And again, it's because of the proactive approach that the department, both national and provincial, have decided to go on to advise farmers to vaccinate. We didn't have any cases last year. We also did not have any cases in 2019. We had one isolated case in the Free State in 2018, and it was quickly contained in that area where that outbreak occurred. The other thing, Sakina, that I should probably also mention, over and above vaccination, there's other measures that farmers can also undertake in avoiding and preventing introduction of Rift Valley fever onto their heads, and that is by controlling the vector itself, spraying your fields and making sure that you don't have high numbers of mosquitoes, and if at all possible, remove any water, artificial water ponds, like water that gets stuck in tires, little water dams that pool. Try and remove all of that so that you remove the environment where mosquitoes breed.
And Dr. Maja, which areas in South Africa is this RVF most prevalent in?
We have seen the highest numbers of rift in the Western Free State, Southern Northern Cape. So the Southern Northern Cape, Eastern Free State, and north of the Western Cape. That area has good waters. It's got water bodies that harbor and good environment for the mosquitoes to breed. So that is where we had the biggest outbreak in 2010. And as I said, the last case in 2018 was also in that area.
And the Department of Agriculture has also said that Rift Valley fever can be transmitted to humans, as you've also pointed out. How dangerous is this viral disease to people?
It depends again on the viral load, the amount of virus that the person gets exposed to. If you get massive doses, it is fatal. And most of the time people do recover if you get a small amount of virus exposure. But it is a very painful disease. It actually, as I was refreshing my mind, the clinical signs actually could be confused with the current COVID signs. Basically fever, sore body, pains, muscle aches, stiff neck, flu-like symptoms. So that's typical of viral diseases. They tend to have similar clinical signs. So people need to be careful as we go into high vector season that it could be COVID, it could be Rift, it could just be ordinary flu, but please let's not take it for granted. Let's seek medical attention.
And Dr. Maja, what happens if animal meat infected with Rift Valley fever is actually made available on the open market for human consumption? What sort of effect would that possibly have?
Fortunately, our meat inspection system is robust. It would be picked up at the abattoir through post-mortem inspections. Animals that are feverish don't bleed out well, so the meat inspection team would pick that up. But meat that is cooked, which is how we consume our meat, is safe for consumption, so the consumers really don't need to be worried about getting infected through consumption of meat. We should, however, stay away from unpasteurized milk for a number of reasons, not just Rift Valley fever.
I would imagine that farmers would know, but perhaps just for those maybe starting out or for general interest, where do farmers actually get the vaccine?
The vaccine can be purchased at the co-ops or directly from OBP, Honest Approved Biological Products. They do have two types of vaccine. They have the inactivated vaccine, which is one thing that I also missed to say, apologies. There's two types of vaccines. There's inactivated vaccine, which we recommend to be used on pregnant animals. and there is live vaccine, which should never be used in pregnant animals because it's going to cause abortions. So both these vaccines can be bought from OBP or from the co-op that distribute OBP products.
And for those who can't afford, can they get it for free from government?
We don't have that program, Sakina, unfortunately, but the individual farmers can approach the provinces. Different provinces have different support packages for farmers. So you may find that some provinces would be able to assist farmers with vaccines such as Rift vaccine. So we would encourage them to approach their provincial vet authorities.
Dr. Maja, thanks so much for your time. Dr. Mpho Maja is talking to us about the importance of farmers inoculating animals against Rift Valley fever, which can also be passed on to human beings who come into contact with bodily fluids of infected livestock. Very interesting. But we still have a few minutes. Let's just